Engineered to outperform. This is the motto from KWA, a high-end manufacturer of AEGs and gas blowbacks. With most of their guns being high-end, they tend to come with a high-end price as well. But today's review is going to be on their Mac 11 series, which, being only $150, has a much more budget-friendly price than any of their other guns, such as their SR AEGs. With this in mind, we're going to see if the KWA M11 lives up to KWA's motto of being engineered to outperform. In order to keep the cost down, KWA chose to make the M11 out of plastic. This has both its pros and cons. It keeps the gun light, but the structural and external integrity is not of the highest. I would have preferred them to choose metal for at least the lower receiver. The only metal parts on the KWA's M11 are the trigger, safety selector, fire selector, body pins, flash hider, cocking handle, and the internals. The markings on the M11 are very simple and tasteful, with a safe and fire on the right side as well as a barely noticeable manufactured in Taiwan. On the opposite side, you have your selector switch, which is nice and crisp and can spin in either direction, showing your safe, semi-automatic, and fully automatic. The 48 round magazine has a barely noticeable manufactured in Taiwan on it. Normally you would have a small retractable stock on the M11. I've opted to take it off as it is kind of useless, being that it is so small, and most people will use this as a machine pistol instead. The 48 round magazine works extremely well and holds a lot of gas, and it has a locking follower. I'm a big fan of KWA's design of their magazines. Now for those of you that have noticed that the rear of the receiver has splotches, this is JB Weld due to the fact that the M11 has developed stress cracks on it over time. Now we're going to shoot the M11. Before you insert your magazine, you're going to want to pull the charging handle back as to avoid damage to the nozzle. Our target's about 65 feet away, and we're going to be using 0.2 gram BBs and propane. Now, the accuracy is not the greatest. This is due to the short inner barrel, as well as the horrible sight picture that the M11 has, which we're going to show you in a few moments. Now, you can see that we completely missed the target, but the grouping is fairly decent. You'll be able to hit targets easily in CQB, but this is more of a spray and pray weapon. You're not going to be hitting targets at 150 feet. Now the side picture on the M11, as you guys can see, is not the greatest, and this is with a close-up to the eye. You're going to be using this more like a pistol, so your sight's going to be a lot harder to see. Now in semi-automatic, the gun's return is very quick, and the sound is very nice. On full auto, you can empty your magazine in probably 3 seconds. It's probably the only way you're going to want to use your M11. It's awesome. Now you'll notice that a BB jumps in front of the bolt carrier in this instance. This is not due to the gun not working right. This is because the magazine, the BB follower track is really dirty, and this tends to cause misfeeds and jams like this one here. After cleaning both the magazine and the gun functioned flawlessly. Now it's time to disassemble the gun. The only tools that you're going to need are just a pen and your cleaning utensil, which we're using a old rag. So first you're going to want to remove the magazine and make sure that the gun is not in safe. You're going to remove this plastic plunger that's on the opposite side of the main body pin. You're going to pull it out. Next we're going to use our pen to push out the main body pin. After removing it, you're going to want to wheel the upper receiver away from the lower. Next, you're going to want to push back on the bolt carrier so that the hook in the rear disengages from the lower receiver, and you'll be able to separate the entire upper from the lower. Now we're done with our lower at the moment, and we're going to fill strip the rest of the upper. You'll notice that there's a larger hole along the top of the receiver. You're going to want to pull the cocking handle back to it and slightly rotate to pull it off. With the cocking handle removed, you can pull out the bolt carrier. In order to remove the barrel assembly, you're going to need to push out this small pin near the front. It comes out fairly easily, so don't use too much force. Now we can remove our flash hider, our tether ring, and the outer and inner barrel. Now it's time to put everything back together after you've cleaned it, of course. First we're going to start by putting the outer barrel back in place. Now you're going to place your tether ring and your flash hider back on. There's a small dimple on the underside of the flash hider. Make sure that this lines up with the hole on the side of the receiver so that the pin can go in without any problems. After placing all of that back in place, you're going to want to put the bolt carrier back in to the upper receiver and make sure that the guide rod did not fall out of the side. Don't forget to put the cocking handle back in. You're going to pull the bolt carrier back to the rear, and with some small amount of pressure, you're going to want to twist the cocking handle back in place. Now with all of that in place, you're going to push the bolt carrier forward just to make sure that it's seated properly. Now push the bolt carrier back to the rear so that you can hook it back into the lower receiver. Once it's hooked in, you can push the upper receiver back into place with pushing top pressure on the rear so that the upper receiver can line up to the lower. Replace your body pin and you're good to go. After you've put all the pins back in, do a quick function check. KDUA's M11 is a very nice submachine gun. At $150, it's got a decent price to it and performs fairly well. My only gripe is the plastic construction. I wish they at least made the lower receiver out of metal, or even some kind of aluminum would have been better, as after a while the lower receiver developed a stress crack that had to be JB welded, which takes away from the looks of the gun, but it still functions fairly well.